My name is Beverly Farr, and I write sweet, quirky romances. And one thing I've been thinking about lately is how romances are like potato chips. Because when you start to eat one, oops, upside down. When you want to eat one, you can't stop eating them because they're so great. I love potato chips. In fact, I can't have them in the house unless it's for a meal, because if I have an open bag, it becomes an empty bag. So anyway, but not about that, about romance novels. When I was a kid, I used to read Trixie Belden and some other not romances yet. And then when I was 12, I read Pride and Prejudice. And it was great. And I was so young when I read it, I was totally fooled by Wickham. I mean, I went along going, he sounds like a nice guy, and I'm reading, what? It was really fun. Anyway, I love Jane Austen, but she didn't write that many books. So I read hers, and then I went on to Georgette Hare, which I used to call Georgette Hare, but she likes it, Georgette Hare, so I try to call her what she wanted to be called. And then when I was about 13, my sister came home from college with a suitcase full of skinny Harlequins, and that was the end for me. I mean, I started reading those, and they were just like potato chips. I just wanted to read them all the time. And actually, in high school one time, I wrote down the names of all the books I read in a year, and it turned out to be more than 500. It was about 540, and I actually would keep a romance on my lap during school so that the teacher's talking, and I made sure I asked a few questions and looked up and looked like I was participating a little bit, but I wasn't really. And then I was reading books, and they weren't all skinny romances. There were other things too, but I would say out of the 500 that year, 400 were skinny romances. And I read some other things too, mysteries and thicker books, and probably more literature, some literature in there too. But anyway, books like potato chips. I remember a day in high school when I came home from the book trade place with a sack of romance novels, and unfortunately they were the ones with the covers ripped off. I didn't know that it was illegal for people to sell them at the time, but I found out later that they'd ripped off the cover, and you could get a book without the cover for 10 cents. And so I had a whole bag of them, and I sat in a high back chair with the books like this, and I read one, plop, read another one, plop. And I know I read at least 6 in one day sitting in the chair. And of course my mom wanted me to be helping around the house and was not too pleased that I wasted the whole day. But I love reading romances, and I love writing them too. I assume that I have read at least 5,000 romances, but it's probably closer to 10,000. Right now I have written 7, but I have hundreds of plots in my head. I've been writing for years. And now I'm published on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, and it's Kobo, and it's really fun. It's really fun. And so I hope that people who read my books will be like me when I was younger and now. When I would find an author I liked, I would read everything they wrote. And I remember one of my favorite authors is Betty Neals. She writes these great starving British nurses marry a rich Dutch doctor, get to go to Harrods, buy nice clothes, eat good food, be happy. They're really great stories, but they're great escape. And particularly when I was in college, when I was starving and not eating a lot of food, good food, I would read these books, and it was just perfect escape Cinderella stories. But the one thing I also like about her books is that they're not just a Cinderella story. There is some grit to them. These stories do take place in hospitals. People are sick and dying, and there's serious things going on. Sometimes her heroines end up, and there's a bomb going off in London or something, and she has to be there, or there's dangerous things going on. And so I loved her books. But I hope that someday people will look at my books and say, oh, I'm waiting for the next Beverly Farr book, and they'll eat them like potato chips. Thanks.